Alright, I want to do another video on perception and how we see, to try to simultaneously, I guess, bring things down and ground our ideas in the real, but at the same time bring everything up into a unity and a whole. Because I think part of the problem of a lot of the ways that we conceive of these things versus perceive these things is that we conceive of these things as parts, and we try to construct all of our parts into unified wholes, when I think I'm starting to think and understand it as perception works the other way around. Perception sees unities of multiplicities. It sees wholes out of particulars. It sees conglomerations, mosaics, which is why I entitled my first couple videos Mosaic Vision. And I mean, you could call that iconic vision too. It's the same thing. I'm trying to get at the same thing. Whereas when we're thinking, particularly in the modern world, in the enlightenment world, in the post-industrial world, I think that we try to construct wholes out of individual parts, and we try to really break things down, and that's a product, I think, of what McGilchrist would call a lopsided left brain, a brain that only thinks with, or that thinks primarily, tries to think in abstractions and in it's too analytical. It's breaking things down. It's what Lewis described. It's like understanding a frog by vivisection. You're breaking it down into parts, and then sometimes when we're trying to reimagine the world and reconstruct and make sense of the world, we try to bring all these parts back together that we've broken down through intellectual vivisection, and I think what's happening is our consciousness is having a really hard time seeing those things, but then but I think that's fundamentally how perception works. And so something I've been thinking a lot about is Jesus's lines of seeing, not seeing, and hearing, but not hearing. Because fundamentally, something I've been talking about and thinking about is that all sight involves non-sight. All perception involves non-perception. Anytime that you perceive anything, take any of your five senses, it involves not seeing. Anytime you see anything, let's just take vision. So, and this works not only in biological vision, but it works in just vision proper, perception proper, vision largely, seeing. Ideas, seeing anything, is what happens is, in order to see something, like I was saying before, you're seeing a unity out of multiplicity. That's Peugeot and Peterson talked about this. I should try to find the timestamp, because in their conversation they talked about hierarchy, and that's fundamentally what hierarchy is, and what salience is, what a relevance realization is, to bring in John Vervaeke. I think I'm not as familiar with Vervaeke, but what that is a unity of multiplicity popping forward out of infinity. So, and Jordan Peterson talks about this really well when he talks about artificial intelligence and programming vision, trying to program vision in artificial intelligence, sight. And he says the problem is that we thought it was going to be easy, because when you construct your reality in your mental imagery of a world of facts and objects, well, you think, well, that'll just be easy. Tell them to look at a chair, and then, oh, there's a chair. But fundamentally, that's not. This is what we're learning through science. We're relearning to put language on. But this is fundamentally just how perception works. Is you don't see the object of the chair. You see a unity of things, of multiplicities that present themselves as potential. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. So you see like a sitting potential. You see a falling off potential. You don't see holes. You don't see chairs. You see you see action, you see verbs, you don't see nouns, to bring in the Barfield and Lewis discussion. And so anytime that happens, though, like you walk into a room, there's basically if you just to deconstruct this argument, if you think of the world as facts and objects, there's essentially limitless facts and objects in a room. And why do you pick up on any of those things? Why do you focus on any of those things versus anything else? That is seeing, not seeing. Whenever you are perceiving something, even in biological sight, I would say smell or anything, something is popping forward at you in your salience, in your awareness, in your attention, and you see it. So, sorry, I keep looking to see if I'm going to get cut off here. So when you see a chair, boom, the chair pops forward. The muse, your attention is grabbed by something. A lot of that's, programmed, for lack of a better word, but trained into you, habituated. I'll go with habituated because I like Rupert Sheldrake, rather than adopting from this machine, mechanized big machine. I'll call it big machine, the principality of machine parts thinking. Something shines forward at you because you've been habituated, you've been trained biologically or in every way to live. We are designed to live. And so, boom, snake, your vision, something that's different, something that's you recognize a pattern out of your periphery, out of your subconscious, out of your focal vision, out of your and this brings in Polanyi. I'm thinking of Polanyi and Esther Meek and Drew Johnson, Polanyi's subsidiary focal integration. But this is when something outside of all of your integrated things, your center, something fringe shines forward and you see it, you focus on it, you shift your vision to focus on the thing that is different, the pattern that is different, the unity of multiplicity that is different. And that happens like when you're scared, because that shakes you out of your normal mundane rhythm, but that happens too with all of your desires and what you're wanting. You want to sit, boom, a chair shines forward and you look for a place to sit. But it's all action oriented. It's not object oriented. It's rooted in desire, and it's rooted in being, and it's rooted in participation. It's rooted in a dynamism and not a static thing. And that's why the things shine forth at you, because things are rooted in being, in desire. That's all of that stuff is connected. And fundamentally, I would argue that's how we perceive the world, but people don't see that. So when something shines forward, everything else fades into your... so if it's a relevance realization, into your irrelevant. For what I want right now, for what I'm looking at, for what I'm perceiving, the other things are irrelevant, so they fade into the background. Well, that's something to shine forth. So in a mosaic, if you're looking at a mosaic, or if you're looking at anything, like think about those 3D, I don't know, I grew up as a child of the 80s and 90s, and so people might not really know what these are, but like those hidden images within colored diagrams that have all these different color diagrams, and so it's like a 3D thing, and if you just sit there and focus on it, you let your eyes rest, and if you can learn to not focus on what you think you're looking for, all of a sudden something will shine forward, and when your eyes relax, you can see this new 3D thing, this hidden thing within everything else. Well, that's revelation. That's a shining forward of something that's a seeing of something that you previously did not see, and then everything else, what you were previously seeing, you stop seeing, and you see the new thing. Well, that's seeing, not seeing. And so I might run out of time, because this might cut out of 10. So one of the other things I want to bring in is Robert Irwin, who's, I think, this architect. I've never read him, but I've heard. He has this quote, which I've always loved, and it's, "Seeing is forgetting the name of the thing one sees." And that's, I think, part of what's happening in the modern consciousness is we're relearning to talk about how we fundamentally perceive things. And it's really hard because this is why Barfield is so hard. It's at the base level of being able to articulate consciousness and what's really happening. And that's the hardest level to talk about. Ayn Rand said something like, the hardest thing to get people to see is the thing that everybody has decided not to see. I think that's a Rand quote. And so we're relearning how to do that, and it's incredibly hard, especially especially if you are invested in not seeing it. So I'll stop there at 10.